No contact. Two words that every man hears after a breakup, and almost every man misunderstands. You think no contact is about silence. You think it's about waiting, blocking, ignoring, disappearing. But here's the truth that almost no one tells you. No contact means nothing until you evolve into the man she can no longer reach. Because silence without transformation is just absence, and absence doesn't build desire, it builds distance. Most men go silent, but never change. They stop texting, but still think about her every minute. They delete her number, but still check her profile. They act calm, but still replay every moment in their head. That's not power. That's quiet obsession, and women can feel it, even through the silence. When your energy still revolves around her, your silence doesn't create mystery. It creates tension. You're not absent. You're predictable. She knows you're still waiting. She knows the silence is just a tactic, and the moment she feels that, the dynamic dies. Because true no contact isn't about punishing her. It's about purifying yourself. It's not a strategy for revenge. It's a journey of rebirth. When you go no contact the right way, you don't just remove her from your phone. You remove her from your identity. You stop trying to win her back and start winning yourself back. You stop asking, will she miss me? And start asking, would I even recognize myself a month from now? That's the transformation that flips everything. Because when she finally does think of you again, when she scrolls through old photos or hears your name from a friend, she shouldn't feel familiarity. She should feel distance. She should sense that the man she once knew doesn't exist anymore, that he's been replaced by someone she can't read, can't predict, and can't control. And that's when no contact starts to work, not when you disappear, but when you ascend, when your silence stops being a reaction and starts becoming a reflection of power. When your absence stops being emotional punishment and starts being proof of peace. When you no longer need her to validate your worth, because your actions have already redefined it. That's when the silence starts echoing. That's when she starts wondering. And that's when she realizes she's not ignoring you anymore. She's missing a man who no longer exists. Because no contact isn't about closing a chapter. It's about becoming the kind of man she can't reach. Not because you're unavailable, but because you've evolved beyond her understanding. Before we start, a quick reminder. My complete Stoic Couple course is now live at thestoiccouple.Podia.com. If you've been learning from these videos, that's just the surface. Inside the course, we go deeper, mastering attraction, understanding female psychology, and rebuilding your mindset from the inside out. Join once, and you're in for life, with lifetime access to all future courses, books, and new lessons. Plus, you'll be part of our private Stoic community, a brotherhood where men like you grow together in discipline, power, and self-control. It's available in English and Spanish, and you can enroll instantly at thestoiccouple.Podia.com or click the link below. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's begin. Section number 1. Why most men fail at no contact. Most men misunderstand no contact because they treat it as a tactic, not a transformation. They believe that silence alone will create attraction, that distance will somehow rebuild desire. But silence without purpose doesn't create attraction. It creates confusion, and confusion never leads to power. The truth is, no contact isn't about what you stop doing. It's about who you start becoming. When you go silent while still mentally orbiting her, you're not creating mystery. You're maintaining emotional dependence. You're still reacting to her, just in a quieter way. And that quiet reaction still tells her everything she needs to know. that you're waiting, hoping, and holding on. Women have an intuitive sense for this. They can feel when your silence is coming from strength and when it's coming from fear. The moment you decide to go no contact as a strategy to get her back, you've already lost your frame. Because your silence has a purpose. And that purpose is her. She becomes the center of your self-improvement. And that's not empowerment. That's attachment in disguise. No contact only begins to work when she's no longer the goal. The goal must become the man you want to be when this silence ends. You see, the Stoic man doesn't retreat to punish. He retreats to rebuild. He understands that true absence is not about ignoring her. It's about immersing himself in something far greater: discipline, peace, and inner balance. Most men waste no contact waiting for her message. The Stoic man uses it to rewrite his story. He starts improving his body, sharpening his mind, and rebuilding his standards. He doesn't hide. He evolves in plain sight. Because nothing confuses a woman more than realizing that the man she expected to chase has suddenly found purpose without her. That's the moment power shifts. When she looks for the same man who once begged for her attention and finds a completely different energy, calm, grounded, and detached, she begins to question her own choices. She wonders if she misjudged you. And that uncertainty is what creates attraction again, not the silence itself. No contact fails when it's reactive. It works when it's reflective. If you're doing it to make her miss you, you're still acting from ego. But if you're doing it to make yourself unrecognizable to the man you were before, you're walking the path of true transformation. The Stoic man doesn't chase through communication. He attracts through evolution. His silence doesn't say, "I'm waiting for you." It says, "I've outgrown what we were." And that difference between absence and ascension is exactly what turns distance into dominance. Section number 2, the shift from emotional dependence to inner dominance. The real shift in no contact doesn't happen the day you stop reaching out. It happens the day you stop waiting for her to notice. That's the turning point. When silence stops being a tactic and becomes an identity. Because until then, you're not detached. You're simply holding your breath, hoping she'll break the silence first. And that's not power. That's dependence, dressed in self-control. When a man first goes quiet, his mind plays tricks on him. He convinces himself that his restraint is strength, but inside, he's still chained to her reaction. Every hour without a message feels like a test. Every day without a sign feels like proof of failure. And that emotional volatility is exactly what prevents him from moving forward. The Stoic man, however, plays a different game. He doesn't measure progress by how she responds. He measures it by how little her response defines his state. Each day he goes without hearing from her isn't a sign of loss. It's a sign of healing. He begins to replace the anxiety of silence with the satisfaction of self-control. Because in the absence of her energy, he finally hears his own. That's where inner dominance begins, not when you suppress emotion, but when you learn to redirect it. Instead of wasting energy chasing what's gone, you start investing it into purpose, fitness, learning, and peace. You stop seeking closure from her and start creating it within yourself. You stop needing her attention to feel worthy, and instead, your new discipline becomes your validation. You start realizing that the silence that once hurt you is now feeding you. It's building patience, sharpening awareness, and strengthening the emotional muscle that most men never develop. Restraint. That's what separates the weak from the wise. The ability to stay still in the middle of chaos and let the storm pass without chasing the wind. And here's the beauty of it. Once your energy shifts, everything else starts to align. You start walking differently, talking differently, even thinking differently. You no longer crave her validation because you're too focused on respecting your own. That energy is rare, and she'll feel it. Not because you're posting about it, not because you're trying to prove it, but because peace has a frequency that can't be faked. Eventually, she'll sense it. That quiet certainty in your tone, that calm in your presence. And for the first time, she won't recognize the man she thought she had figured out. That's the paradox of true detachment. When you finally stop needing her to reach out, she starts feeling the distance, because you didn't just go silent. You evolved. You didn't just disappear. You ascended. And that's when no contact becomes something more than a pause. It becomes the proof that you no longer belong where you once begged to be. Section number 3, becoming the man she can't reach. The evolution of energy and presence. Becoming the man she can't reach isn't about cutting her off. It's about rising so high in your energy that the version of you she once knew no longer exists. It's not distance in miles. It's distance in mindset. She may still have your number, but she no longer has access to your peace, your thoughts, or your attention. And that's what truly changes everything. When a man evolves in silence, he doesn't announce it. He doesn't post cryptic quotes or try to prove he's moved on. He simply disappears from the noise and starts upgrading every part of himself that used to seek approval. His silence becomes sacred, not strategic. He's not ignoring her. He's rebuilding himself brick by brick in the dark. And this quiet evolution is what drives her mind into chaos, because she can't control what she can't read. The man who once over-explained now speaks through calm. The man who once reacted now observes. The man who once begged for her energy now radiates his own. And that shift, that invisible change in frequency, is something every woman feels deeply, even from afar. It's a paradox. When you were available, she felt safe to ignore you. But now that you've detached, her curiosity wakes up. She starts to wonder why your energy no longer pulls toward her. She replays your last interactions, searching for the moment she lost the grip. And when she realizes that your silence isn't emotional, it's evolved, that's when the power dynamic reverses. Because what truly attracts a woman isn't constant attention. It's unreachable depth. The moment she senses that your peace no longer depends on her, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. She can't manipulate calm. She can't decode quiet confidence. And in that confusion, attraction is reborn. But here's the key. This transformation isn't about her at all. It's about rediscovering who you are when you stop performing for love. It's about becoming the kind of man who leads his emotions instead of being led by them. It's about building an identity that stands firm, whether she stays, leaves, or returns. Because a stoic man doesn't rise to impress, he rises to align. He no longer needs validation to feel worthy. His purpose becomes his peace. And once a man reaches that level of inner stillness, no one can touch him. Not her, not rejection, not uncertainty. She'll see it, she'll feel it. And whether she admits it or not, she'll start to crave it again. The calm, the confidence, the composure. But what she won't realize is that she's no longer chasing you. She's chasing the version of herself that could still reach you. And that's when you know you've mastered no contact, when silence no longer feels like waiting, but like freedom. Section number 4. What she feels when you become unreachable, the emotional reversal. At first, she thought she had control. She believed that walking away meant she held the power, that silence would make you chase, that your world would quietly orbit hers. And for a while, she was right. Until something shifted. Your energy changed. You stopped reacting. You stopped explaining. You stopped existing in the version of her story where she was the main character. And that's when her mind began to unravel. You see, women don't start missing you when you go silent. They start missing you when they realize they can no longer affect you. Emotional impact is the currency of attraction. As long as she could make you feel something, anger, sadness, desperation, she still felt connected to you. But when that emotional access disappears, the connection collapses. At first, she'll tell herself she's fine. She'll convince her friends that she's over it. But the human mind hates unfinished energy, and your calm becomes the open loop she can't close. She expected you to chase. She expected you to react. But instead, you responded with stillness. And now, every moment of your silence feels louder than her pride. Slowly, curiosity turns into confusion. Confusion turns into reflection. And reflection turns into attraction. Not because of who you were, but because of who you've become. The man who once needed her now feels untouchable. The man who once overthought every message now looks like he's living in complete alignment. She starts wondering what changed. Did he meet someone? Did he finally move on? Did he realize his worth? And that wondering is where she begins to lose control. Because women are drawn to certainty, but obsessed with mystery. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you become a mystery again. She'll watch your silence, analyze your last words, and read meaning into things you never said. You've stopped giving her answers, and now her mind supplies them for you. That's the emotional reversal, when she starts doing what you used to do. Overthinking, checking, replaying, missing. But unlike you, she can't reach out without risking her ego. So she stays quiet and suffers in curiosity. That's the price of losing access to a man who once gave everything too easily. The beauty of it is, you didn't plan any of this. You didn't manipulate, post, or pretend. You simply grew. You stopped seeking closure and became the closure. You stopped trying to be chosen and started choosing peace. That kind of strength can't be faked. It's felt. Now she's no longer in control of your silence. She's haunted by it. Because it's not cold. It's calm. It's not distant. It's disciplined. And deep down, she knows she can't compete with that kind of energy. That's the paradox of power. When you no longer care whether she returns, that's the moment she starts wanting to. Section number 5. The Stoic Mindset. How to stay detached. Even when she returns. When she finally returns, and she will in one form or another, that's when the real test begins. Because silence is easy when no one's talking to you. Control is easy when you have no choice. But true Stoic mastery is revealed when you have the power to respond and still choose restraint. The moment she reappears, it won't always be direct. Maybe it's a random text, a "how have you been" message, or a reaction to one of your stories. It won't be about closure. It'll be about curiosity. She'll be trying to measure your temperature, to see if she still has access to your emotions. And this is where most men fail. They confuse her message for reconciliation, when in reality, it's just a test of your evolution. A man without emotional discipline rushes to reply, eager to prove he's changed. But the Stoic man understands that real change doesn't need to be proven. It's felt through energy, through tone, through presence. When she reaches out, your goal isn't to win her back. It's to maintain the peace that made her reach out in the first place. You see, attraction doesn't come from reaction. It comes from regulation. The way you hold your composure, the way you respond slowly, with intention, creates more impact than any words ever could. She expects you to break the silence with excitement. Instead, you answer with calm. She expects nostalgia. Instead, you radiate neutrality. And that's what shakes her. Because emotional detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means you've mastered control over what deserves your energy. You no longer chase feelings. You choose focus. You've built a life where peace is the standard, not a reward. So even when she returns, you don't rush to fill the silence. You let her speak into it. This level of calm presence makes her confront the reality she once took for granted. The version of you that over-explained, over-apologized, and over-loved no longer exists. She's not talking to the same man. She's talking to the product of silence, discipline, and self-respect. And that's what reignites desire, not because you're withholding, but because you're unshakable. In Stoicism, power lies not in action, but in reaction. The one who controls his inner world controls the outcome of every encounter. So when she returns, remember, your peace is the real prize. Don't give it away for a moment of validation. The goal isn't to get her back. It's to stay aligned with the man you became while she was gone. Because sometimes she doesn't return to love you. She returns to see if she still can. And when she realizes that her influence no longer moves you, she'll understand what real growth looks like. That's when you've won. Not by getting her attention, but by keeping your peace. Section number 6. The new standard. Living beyond the need for validation. When you finally understand the purpose of no contact, something inside you shifts forever. You realize it was never about making her miss you. It was about learning to live without needing anyone to validate your worth again. That's the moment you cross from emotional dependence into true self-mastery, because once a man no longer seeks validation, he becomes magnetic by nature, calm, grounded, complete. Most men live their entire lives chasing acknowledgement. They want to be seen, appreciated, chosen. They shape their personality around what earns attention and spend their energy trying to sustain it. But that kind of approval is rented, not owned. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of proving instead of becoming. The Stoic man moves differently. He no longer measures his value by who texts him back, who praises him, or who stays. His value comes from his alignment, from living in integrity with who he says he is. He doesn't need to announce his worth, because his actions already declare it quietly, every single day. When you live from that space, peace becomes your baseline, not your reward. You start waking up without anxiety because your emotions are no longer tied to external outcomes. You stop reacting to the highs and lows of relationships because you've learned to find balance in both presence and absence. You no longer chase the feeling of being needed. You embody the truth of being whole. And that's the new standard. Not coldness, but clarity. Not arrogance, but alignment. The Stoic man doesn't play hard to get. He is hard to reach because he's focused on purpose. His silence isn't strategy anymore. It's lifestyle. It represents emotional freedom, mental discipline, and spiritual elevation. Women feel this immediately. They sense the difference between distance and depth. A man who withholds attention out of pride feels tense, but a man who withholds it out of peace feels powerful. She may not understand it fully, but she'll respect it instinctively. Because your energy no longer seeks approval, it commands respect. And that's where attraction transforms into admiration. She may desire you again, but you no longer need her to. You've become so centered in your purpose that whether she stays or walks away doesn't shake your foundation. You've built a life that isn't waiting for love to complete it. It's already fulfilled. This is what it means to truly ascend, to stop performing for attention and start living in authenticity. To let silence speak your confidence and stillness express your control. Because the man who no longer needs validation becomes the one everyone silently seeks. Section number 7, the final ascension. When peace becomes power. There comes a moment, after all the silence, all the reflection, and all the distance, when you realize something extraordinary. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Not to her, not to the past, not even to yourself. Because you've seen what's on the other side of chaos, and it's not revenge, it's peace. That's the point where every man who walks the Stoic path eventually arrives. The moment when your worth is no longer up for debate. You stop trying to win people back, stop trying to explain your silence, stop trying to be understood by those who were never meant to understand you. You simply exist in stillness, and from that stillness everything falls into place. You see, peace isn't weakness, it's the highest form of strength. It's what allows you to walk away without anger, to respond without ego, to stay calm while others break under the weight of emotion. And that calm is what separates the ordinary man from the Stoic one. The man who reaches this level doesn't operate from pride. He operates from presence. He doesn't chase attention because attention follows him naturally. He doesn't fear rejection because rejection no longer defines him. His peace becomes his presence, and that presence becomes his power. When you reach this level of stillness, everything changes. You attract differently. You move differently. You speak less, but everything you say carries weight. People feel your energy before you even speak. And women sense something they can't quite name: safety, certainty, gravity. You've become the man whose silence commands more than another man's words. That's when you finally understand what no contact was really about. It was never about her missing you. It was about you remembering yourself. It was about shedding the layers of need, doubt, and fear that kept you from becoming the man you were always meant to be. And here's the paradox. Once you reach that peace, the world starts chasing what you no longer pursue. She feels it. People notice it. Opportunities flow toward it, because peace is rare, and anything rare becomes irresistible. So, when she looks back one day, she won't just remember the man who went silent. She'll remember the man who used that silence to rebuild his empire. She'll remember the man who didn't react, didn't beg, didn't collapse, but instead rose into someone she can no longer reach. That's not bitterness. That's ascension. That's what happens when silence stops being a phase and becomes your foundation. Because in the end, no contact was never about walking away. It was about walking up. And when peace becomes your power, the world doesn't just see you differently. It revolves around your calm.